Hello, warriors. So, when you meet somebody and you could just talk to them for hours and hours, there's just so much synergy and you're so in alignment with each other that you could just talk forever. Well, that is what this particular episode was. I have a very special guest today that I think you are all going to glean a lot of value from because she has not just a big heart, but amazing energy. But what she offers the world and how she uses yoga and her coaching to help her clients is really, really special. And I have to say that anybody that has the opportunity to work with her is going to be in for a real special treat. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome Saskia Bergmans Smith. And before I go into the episode, I want to just remind you that this is May of 2021, and I am celebrating the 1-year anniversary of the Empowered Warrior podcast. So there's a lot of things coming up, a lot of treats for you, including bonus episodes. So you may or may not have heard the episode that came out a couple days ago it was episode 47 on what is costing your happiness. And also I'm running a giveaway. The prize will be a 1-hour complimentary coaching session with me. I will put the instructions in the show notes, but what you need to do to enter the contest is to listen to an episode and subscribe to the podcast, and then tag me on Instagram with a screenshot of the episode that you listened to with just a very brief statement of your takeaways, and also tagging 2 of your friends, and also following me on Instagram, which is I am Angela Noel. All right, warriors, so buckle up. You're in for a treat. Again, I welcome Saskia Bergmans Smith. Welcome to the Empowered Warrior podcast. My name is Angela Noel, and I am an intuitive coach, acupuncturist, and Chinese herbalist. This podcast is all about empowerment, meaning how you can maintain your personal power in order to have the best life beyond your imagination. An empowered warrior is someone who has the identity of a person who is healthy, radiant, and free from all suffering, and has the tools ready and available to move through life's obstacles with confidence, ease, and a sense of freedom. In this podcast, I bring over 16 years experience in Chinese medicine, countless years of self-development, and a passion for helping others find their personal power. I will be discussing just a few of my favorite topics regarding health from a Chinese medicine perspective, brain habits, and spirituality, so that you can quickly pave your pathway to freedom and be free from the chains that have kept you stuck. My intention with this podcast is to serve as a guide for warriors who want to form a healthy foundation of body, mind, and spirit, and sustain it by changing who they are being from the inside and having a stronger connection to their higher selves. My goal is to help students end the unnecessary suffering that they place on themselves by having poor health habits, negative thought loops, and a lack of self-worth. I am so happy that you're here. Hello, Empowered Warriors. Welcome to another exciting episode. I have another amazing, and I'm not even exaggerating because I say this about all my guests, but this particular guest, I feel like I've known her from lifetimes ago. I would like to welcome Saskia Bergmans Smith of Self-Care with Saskia. Hi, Saskia. How are you?
Hello, Angela. Good, thank you.
Thank you so much for being on another episode, or being on an episode. I'm really, really looking forward to this conversation. I think you're going to have a lot to offer the empowered warriors listening. So I would love if you could just, first of all, just introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and how you help people.
All right. So my name is Saskia, and my journey started with yoga and realizing what a powerful way to take care of ourselves, to move our bodies, because yoga is not just yoga postures. It's not just the asana. It's the whole umbrella of self-care. And of course, I didn't know that when I started. I was just like, I want to be more flexible. I want to be, that from that ego place of being in a certain way in my body, but also knowing that I needed more grounding and more stability. So it started on that path. And then, of course, you quickly become aware when you take a teacher training how vast and empowering yoga is. And for me, it's really taken me on a journey of undoing and slowing down. And that's where that self-care really comes from. And, it has brought me to a place of reflection more. And that's why I like the slowing down, even within my teaching of my yoga practice, because it allows us to pull back and not give 100%. And in doing so, it allows us to breathe, and it allows us to embody the posture more. And we step out of strain and we come into effort, but effort without strain. And then when I found that I started to embody that in my practice, then of course that wisdom began to seep into my life. I'm like, whoa, where am I forcing? Where am I straining? Where am I pushing? And, it's beautiful how the art begins to move deeper into the being. And then another layer reveals itself. And, it was very interesting. I have these wonderful workshops of the art of self-nurturing. And there are others, but it's escaping me right now. But I have a series of workshops, and I found myself teaching one as my marriage was breaking down and as I was heading into separation and divorce, and just realizing how that was my savior. How that effort of doing less, when we separated, we had a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old. So there was huge depletion of having 2 children fairly rapidly in succession. And also stepping into the stress and strain of selling a family home, moving into divorce, taking care of young kids, and sleepless nights, and it really was, I've got to do less, otherwise I'll drown. Otherwise I won't come out of this, and my children will suffer, and it will take longer for me to find my footing again. So thank goodness I had the wisdom of yoga already behind me and integrated enough in my being that I could see that trajectory and make choices from that point.
Yeah, thank you, first of all, for sharing part of your journey, Saskia. That's very powerful. And I think that people listening a lot of people are going to be able to relate to your journey. Those that are in either strained relationships or going through separation, divorce. And what was also a beautiful share is that you said that I heard this metaphor of how yoga mimics life, right? So I wrote it down. Yeah. Basically you're undoing and you're slowing down and forcing yourself to pull back in yoga so that you can expand more. And that essentially is what's so necessary in life too. It's not just a matter of a physical workout, but it's also allowing the expansion and the stretching that needs to happen in life in order to grow and
Absolutely.
get to the next level in your life. And in your case, moving through this huge transition of your relationship.
Right. Because it was it was all encompassing. And what was very striking was, I do remember one class that I taught, I felt so depleted and so tired, but I just showed up to the class and I was talking really slowly, and everything was just slowed down because I had nothing to give. And one of my students was like, that was the best class ever. And I was like, whoa, just getting that feedback of, you were so serene because you were slightly spaced yet grounded at the same, it was that merging of these energies all together. And that was really powerful to hear, of like, gosh, I think because I really slowed down for self-preservation, the message came across that much more powerfully in what I was teaching. It's amazing when you're a teacher and you hold the space for others, the feedback that comes to you is just as much of a gift as you are serving them, which is one of the reasons why I love teaching, I love coaching, I love collaborating with people to enrich their lives, because everything that gets shared by me and shared by them, it's such a symbiotic practice that we all benefit.
Absolutely. There's beauty, I think, in what I was hearing when you were telling that was there was almost a vulnerability about you that maybe your students picked up. Does that resonate for you?
Quite possibly. I don't know if they were aware per se of, because I did keep it to myself for a while because I didn't want to burden them with that, because this, you get attached to your teachers, and I wanted to keep it as clean as I could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally get that. That's yeah, and I think there's something to be said too about just when we're letting go, when we're in your case tired, right? And you just let go, and you allowed yourself to let go and just allow what came through. You're turning off that analytical monkey mind, right? They call that in yoga, monkey mind. That's chattering and, am I doing this right? Or are my students getting this message right? But there's something about that sweet surrender of just allowing. That's, it sounds like that was very beautiful for you and your students.
Yeah. And realizing it's, everything has a silver lining. And as tough as that period was, it really did teach me to surrender more, and help me to go another layer of surrender, because I just only had so much to give, and therefore I needed to surrender and allow my higher consciousness to guide me through class, and expand on my connection in a deeper way with myself, and the connection with my higher self, which is the birthright for each and every one of us. But that's not communicated in everyday life. And that is very much what this period that we're moving into is, that more of us are conscious that that is what we have signed up for at this time. And in doing so, it's our sharing of, did you know you have a higher self that has chosen this path and is here to guide you every step of the way? And then teaching and sharing modalities and techniques to support others to empower themselves. And I do that through my yoga practice. I do that through my coaching. I do that with my children. To have them know this from this age is, I'm hoping, well, I believe they chose me. So I'm like, this is our contract.
Yes.
I'm showing up for you, and I'm teaching everything that I know. And I'm so grateful, because especially in their younger years, when I was, surviving, if you would, I was so grateful that I still had time to refine who I aspired to be, because there were many times where I didn't feel I was the person I aspired to be, because I just didn't have the bandwidth to hold it. And I was like, it's okay. These beauties have agreed in this contract with me, and they know that they're going to grow with me. So it really, and of course I had girlfriends, the couple of close beloved girlfriends who would say, cut yourself some slack. Don't be so hard on yourself. And one of our sitters, who was our surrogate grandmother, was like, Saskia, this is a 1 on the scale. I was like, oh, okay. Rather than me making this big thing out of a way I behaved or something I may have done, she's like, out of 10, this is a half. And I was like, okay, just bring it back to reality.
You can do this. Yeah. So I love what you shared, and there were, I picked up so many gems that I'm like, okay, where can I start? But I would love to circle back, if we would, because you brought up, what I heard you say, you brought up the topic of conscious parenting, which I would love to explore. But I would really love to, if you could share more about specifically what you, like when you take on a client, and how you work with people. Do you work with them in like group classes and privately, or is it a combination of both?
It's a combination of both. With my workshops, we work as a group, and in my one-on-one coaching, it's through Zoom or through the phone, one-on-one. And it really is, obviously when it's a workshop, there's a theme that we're working on that's drawn them in, and then we go into the deeper crux of it. I have a relationship one, and with all of these topics, it all comes down to, would you date yourself? What aspects are within you that you're looking for someone else to fulfill? In our friendships with our friends and with our intimate partners, it's all the same. Angela, when I first when we were in the process of divorce, I got a frozen shoulder on the right side. And I knew exactly what it was. My maiden was like, no, I chose to get married. I do not want, the masculine, I didn't want to do the masculine acts. I didn't want to do taxes and health insurance and pay bills. And I'm capable of it, but I wanted to be carried for a bit. I wanted to be a mother. I wanted to be a partner. I wanted to live freely in my feminine. And yet my destiny was, no, my love, you need to be more rounded and whole, because the relationship that you have now, I came to understand that our contract was to bring these 2 divine beings into the world, and not much more, because we weren't the right match for each other. He's a wonderful man, but we didn't speak the same language enough to bring out the best in each other.
Yeah.
And so, I did do physical therapy. I was a little too fried, if you would, to actually do any of the physical practices. And I gave myself a hard time for that for a bit. But then I was like, no, that the healing is going to happen inside. And it did. And I knew I had the capability of doing it. And I knew I just needed to swallow my pride and just rise to the occasion. And that it would take time to heal. And 4 years on, my ex and I now really have a very good relationship, very good working relationship. But I really, over those 4 years, there was a lot of ownership that I needed to do in my part, because it's very easy to point a finger.
I would love to explore the topic of challenge, and what specifically challenges teach us, right? Because I'm hearing a lot from you about, the breakup of the marriage, right? And how this was the catalyst. And it sounds like, you know, you mentioned contracts, like it was the, you know, I believe, and I'm pretty sure, I'm guessing we're similar. We come on this earth with contracts, right? We chose to be here at a certain time. We chose everything that we do, and every choice that we make, we chose a long time ago. So you and your husband and your children, or your ex-husband and your kids chose you, right? You were here to bring your kids into the world with this man. And also, in the Empowered Warrior, I talk about this a lot, where challenges, we're you know, I grew up believing that challenges are just something that happened to us, and it's just something that's just life. Life is hard, but that's not necessarily true, is it? Challenges are here because they're here to help us grow and evolve. And I have to mention this. I was up this morning at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning thinking about my next podcast episode that I was going to do solo. And what came through was we have everything in the toolbox. We have everything within us, every single thing. We have every skill needed to get through a challenge. And everything that comes up is just here to show us, okay, what is this? What is like, what is this? What is this here to teach me? And so it was going in almost into a deeper level, like, yeah, it's not just a matter of learning the lessons, but why? And the reason is, and this is what came through, is because we don't need anything but ourselves. We're perfect just the way we are, right? We can heal. And you know, of course, if you need the emergency room, go to the emergency room. And if you need something, do that. It's here for a reason. But we're so powerful, and we don't realize that about ourselves.
Absolutely. And I still, I mean, this is our journey. It's like I'm very much aware that I only know a fraction of my potential.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, it's very humbling. It's like, okay, this is fine. I've got a lifetime to expand into this. Mm-hmm. That's fine. And maybe several, you know, and I don't think I'm done after this lifetime. But it's, and goodness, I have had, you know, it's interesting. When I lived in the Netherlands, you know, my parents are Dutch and I grew up in England. And, you know, my parents were always, my father was, you know, University of Life, travel and learn from these experiences. And, you know, they very much encouraged that. They didn't quite expect that I would move continents. Sort of, they didn't plan on that. And they were like, oh no, what have we done? But anyway, it's all good.
We made her too worldly. Uh-oh.
She went too far. She went a step further. That wasn't the plan. But
oh my goodness.
One of the first lady I worked with in the Netherlands, because I always went with psychic people, because I was like, oh, tell me, because I felt that they could help me. And it's interesting, twofold. One is I sought those people out because I knew that potential lives in me. You know, that's what when we pick our teachers, we pick them because they resonate on the same, we resonate on that frequency. We might not have embodied all their qualities, but there is what we want to imbue, which is why we seek them out. And so this first lady, I come to now more in hindsight. I knew at the time, but now more in hindsight, I understand, goodness, she still had much learning to do. She used her psychic abilities not in the most beneficial way. And every time I found a teacher, like the next teacher I found was my yoga teacher that I've worked with for many, many years. And she, as I was taking my teacher training, I realized, oh my goodness, she embodies humility. And I hadn't seen that in a person yet, not in the quality that she embodied it. And that was very clear to me. So it was just like, wow, that's what humility is. Oh my God, I've never seen that before. So it just, that's what I love. And then we get to a point, and that's, I think, what you saw this morning, is that the tipping point is my teachers have shown me the foundation, and I know how to clear myself. I know how to move beyond my own obstacles when I allow myself to do so. And now I see, even though often I'm like, oh, I want to go work with this person. I'm like, you have it all in you. You don't need to go running anywhere else. And this is what I want to support people in my coaching to do for themselves, right? I'm here to help strengthen your foundation, bring more grounding into your being through your yoga practice by taking my classes and what have you. And if you wish to go deeper, work with me through coaching, and we can shed away some of those life lessons that are unique to you, so that you can feel more empowered within your own existence and how you cope with the people you're attracting, and start to shed those patterns within you that are drawing people who are not who don't bring out the best in you, until you have learned that lesson.
Yeah, exactly. Until you have learned that
resonate on that frequency, right? You don't resonate on that frequency anymore.
Yeah.
So you can see them and go, no, thank you. I've learned that lesson now.
Yeah.
I don't need you to come into my life anymore.
And isn't it interesting too, how that attachment like just organically dissolves on its own when you have learned the lesson? So,
yeah.
Say, as an example for the audience, like, say you get in a fight with your friend and the friendship ends, right? And you feel resentment for your friend. And every time you think of your friend, or you see your friend on Facebook, you think, oh God, she hurt me, whatever. But then as you say, you change your frequency. You're literally, like, in doing this work that you offer your clients, it sounds like we're, similar. You were learning, you were working with people to help them step into their power and raise their vibration, so that the next time you see that friend or think about that friend or whatever, it's gone. It's literally gone.
Right.
Like there's no resentment. It's only love. And that's what this work is about. That's why it's so beautiful. And I feel like, people in general, not everybody, but the general population, they're like, oh, I don't need to do that. Or, oh, I'm afraid to do that. Or, oh, it's too much work to do the inner work. But in reality, imagine, like, what's easier? Getting a little uncomfortable and doing this work and raising your vibration, or living with this resentment, for example, for the rest of your life. Like, I think I know what I would choose, but for those out there wondering, like, why would you hire a coach? And I want to bring up one quick thing too, if I may, is the idea around, like, feeling like you need to sign up for that. Like, I heard coursitis when you were talking, like, oh my God, I got to work with this person and that person, because this person's going to fix me and this course is going to fix me. And then what happens as a result? $20,000, $50,000 later, you have all these courses and you're still looking at the same person in the mirror. So I'm curious to know if you would like to just dive into that concept a little bit more. Is, I know I've spent a lot of money on things that have been great, and things, and we're human, right? Like, we're going to buy things sometimes that work for us and don't work. But how do you help your clients change their vibration so that they can move through these obstacles and really legitimately heal, so that these things are behind them, right?
Right. I mean, honestly, one of the key things is, first, in our first meeting, to connect and to hear. We want to hear I would like to hear from my ideal client their true desire for change.
Yes.
Because I know for myself, Angela, I smoked for many, many years. It's now 20 odd years ago. But yeah, I smoked a good European. Oh yeah, I smoked. I had a pack a day. And for years, I gave myself a hard time for it, you know? And this beautiful yoga teacher who taught me humility, she was like, you need to exhaust the tendency until it's done. And I really needed to get to that point where I'm like, I am now complete with this karma. I don't want to have this fight anymore. And that is the clients that I work with who are like, I'm tired of suffering. I'm aware that I am trapped in a cycle of suffering and I want change. I want to have the tools, because in order to part with our money, we need to know that we are worth it. And we need to know that, goodness, I have been going around in circles on my own in this context for long enough that I acknowledge that I need someone else who's 3 or 4 steps ahead of me to help me get out of this muddle, to help me change my programming, to help me rewire where I keep tripping up.
Yeah.
And all of that is what brings about the change, the desire, the knowing I need to part with money, because our friends will help us in some way.
Yes.
But they're still too close, and our love for them also limits, it needs to be someone more anonymous.
Yes.
Where you can get more raw.
Oh, yes.
And also get more vulnerable.
Yes. And feels in a safe container, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes with our friends, of course, they love us and they want to help us. But I think the reason why, I mean, I often hear people saying there's too many coaches, right? There's so many coaches. Well, I think the reason the industry is exploding is because people are starting to realize, like you mentioned, I can relate so much to your story with yoga. I stopped doing just acupuncture because acupuncture alone wasn't deep enough for my clients. I wanted to go in with them and find out why they're having the back pain, why they're having that frozen shoulder, right? Because so many of our our physical symptoms are related to something deeper. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's like 100%. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Unless we fall off our bike and, skin our knee or whatever. So I love what you said about, that person, just, it's often somebody that's just a few steps behind, right? Because you want that person that's ready for change, and that knowing that they are worth it.
Yes.
Maybe they don't totally have the self-worth foundationally laid yet. But
right.
there is a knowing there, like,
Yeah.
I am worth this. I am worth every penny of this investment.
And I need someone to help me step up on the next rung.
Yes.
So that I can, and then, with that tool set, many of my clients, it's like, all right, you've got the tool set, work it. We've got the crux of it. And then in 6 months later, they may come back and go, okay, I've got this doozy here, or, I can't, I've been working it, but I just need a little extra assistance. And then, then we work on it again. So there are many times that I'll work with them for however many they intuitively feel they need. And then they disappear for a month or a year or 6 months. And then they'll resurface when another layer comes to the surface.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have that establishment, we have that relationship, and there's that safety already established. And then they may find somebody else on their path. It's like, fantastic, go grow. It's the one thing that you want to do as a parent is give your children the tools with which to fly and to soar.
Yes.
And that is, really what for me coaching is about too. In the 80s, people, I've had therapy for 20 years. It's like, oh goodness, that's not where we live now, right? That was the 80s and 90s. It's like, no, that's not our paradigm anymore.
No.
That means you're stuck and there's nothing. We want to give you the wings to fly
Yeah.
so that you can embody these tools and have it in your own backpack and take them out when you need them. Because
Mm-hmm.
that's how we find our inner strength and our courage,
Yeah.
and we build upon. And that's, as you mentioned earlier, that knowing of I can heal myself, and this is again our birthright.
It is. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's why we're here, is we're here to
Yeah,
learn how powerful we are.
right.
And I hope that I mean, I intend in my lifetime to see the unfolding of this age of Aquarius that we're in,
Yeah,
where people are waking up and fully embracing and realizing it. And I do think that there is, I think there's been a lot of things, obviously, the COVID pandemic, everything has really allowed people to really stop and say, okay, what is it? Who am I? What do I want?
yeah,
What do I want? You know, a lot of people don't even know to answer those up to those two questions. Who am I and what do I want?
goodness.
And there's I don't know. I know I'm in the minority, but I have found 2020 and now going into 2021 just to be beautiful despite all
Mm,
the things that have happened, because
yeah,
there's been so much opportunity for people to really step into who am I and what do I want? Does this
and to
work for me
begin
anymore?
process. Yeah, questioning life.
Questioning life and how do I want to live the rest of my life? And yeah, I love how you're helping people, and I just love when you talk about yoga. There have been a couple times where you've talked about yoga, and I'm like, is she talking about yoga or is she talking about coaching? Because there's so many metaphors that are,
Yeah,
you know, are so parallel to each
they
other.
are.
I can see how they work beautifully together.
Right, because just so going into a yoga practice, as I say, I go slow and I have the students hold the poses, because it's like, you know, we're so used to jumping from one thing to another to another. And it's like, no, this is the practice in
Mm.
sustaining. This beautiful teacher who taught me humility, she for a good year or something, she's like, Saskia, this is here to teach you grit. And I squirmed. And she's
That's
like,
so
you need this for parenthood, Saskia. Even though I didn't necessarily see parenthood on my horizon at that point, but she was really teaching me grit and being able, isn't that a great word? Yeah,
mm-hmm.
word in society, because we don't embody it.
Mm-hmm.
Holding a posture, you need to harness the breath, you need to come to your center, you need to stay grounded, and you need to stay focused. And well, the mind wants to go everywhere, especially with those balancings. There's no way we're going to hold the balance if we can't find that drishti, that still point,
Mm-hmm.
and hold it. And this is why balancing is so tricky a lot of the time, because that mind is unharnessed, and we're needing to draw it all in and
Yes,
find that still point.
another
And
beautiful
that
metaphor right there.
even just holding our warriors, right? Even just holding warrior one, Virabhadrasana one,
Yes.
and the symbology of it. It took
Yeah.
me a long time to be able to ground in the back heel. Do you remember that? Did you ever feel your back heel rooting into the earth?
Not until I started yoga and then like weightlifting. I never understood that concept before.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So for those of you who are listening, if you're like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
When you're in your next warrior one, Virabhadrasana one, notice, is my back heel anchored and rooted into the earth? This is our past. And if we're not rooted in the back foot, we haven't made peace with our past, and there's some ungrounding there.
Ooh, I have chills.
Right? It's huge.
That is a huge lesson, warriors. Are you listening? Are you listening? Are you hearing that?
Right?
Yeah.
This is so powerful in our practice.
Yes.
Being able to hold life and be at peace with all of it. And it shows up over and over again in our practice,
Yeah.
in coming to the mat, in goodness, Tadasana, mountain pose, is one of the hardest to, to embody, because we have so much undoing to do in order to stand grounded and liberated and light. And yet finding the breath and allowing the breath to embody. And often, very often, I'm saying in class, do less. Less is more. And it is that finding where we're gripping, where we're holding.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's mentally, and sometimes it's in the body because of trauma. And we've all had trauma, be it with a large or a small t. That's life. That is life. But we can heal it.
We can absolutely heal it. And to just speak to trauma really briefly, I'm not a trauma specialist, but I do feel like a lot of people hear the word trauma and they think, oh, that's not me.
Right.
And I just want to touch upon this really quickly, because trauma, like you said, a capital T or a small t, we've all witnessed trauma, no matter large or small. You don't have to be in a car accident. You don't need to be, have horrible things happen to you. It's life, right? And we all carry traumas in our body that affect how we feel emotionally, physically, and spiritually.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was thinking this morning, I've been purging recently as well, which has felt so wonderful. But just with the analogy of the physical purging in our homes, and you go into your kitchen drawer and you're like, wait a minute, I don't use half of these. So you get rid of that extra spatula, and you just take out those knives that you are nice, but they're never your go-to knives.
Yeah.
You don't actually use them.
Yeah.
So I have this waylay closet, and same with the kids' toys, that I'm like, they've outgrown this. And I just put it in that closet that's in the corridor between the back door and our apartment door. And it just stays there for a bit. And then I'm like, you know what? I haven't thought, oh, I do actually use that. It's been there and I haven't used it, so it's going. So, and I say it to the girls often of like, okay, are we ready to give this a new home? And they're like, no, not yet. Or, yeah, okay, mom. So, we go through that process every now and then.
Yeah.
But then when you open the drawer again, you're like, oh, it feels, even just a kitchen drawer, it feels good not to have that clutter.
Yes.
And that's what we do when we do our coaching, when we do our yoga. And we show up again and again. And in the yoga, it's, all right, relax your shoulders. You don't need to have them up by your ears. And it's the same with the coaching. I want to let go of this. I don't know why, but when someone says this word, I flip or I snap or I jump on them. And I'm all right in all these other situations, but for some reason, there's something that triggers me. And it's, that beginning of awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And just saying, I was just talking to a girlfriend the other day about, do you have this dream? And she's like, no, I don't have that kind of repetitive dream. And I was like, oh, that's me. And I get that because of my past.
Yeah.
This invading of space and someone coming into my space, and me not feeling empowered enough to push them out or to get them out. And then in that dream, I realized, no, I am more powerful than this. And I used my feet and I pushed them and they went flying out. And I was like, that is how powerful I am. I am letting go of this old paradigm of not being heard or not having the power to protect myself.
Yeah.
And to have authority over my body and to have authority over my words. And that was very symbolic of that dream. It will come in our dreamscapes, in our dreams that we have over and over. It will come into our lives in the people that we bring where we don't feel empowered.
Yes.
It will come into our postures where We're like, I can't do this. And we keep wanting to walk away.
Yes.
And slowly but surely, we find that we can hold that pose a little longer.
Yes.
And slowly but surely, we can hold our own energy without someone else invading it. And slowly but surely, then we start to say, no, this is the line and you just crossed it and I'm not allowing that.
Yes.
And we start to, those parameters start to become wider, and we begin to create that protective shield around us in our words and our actions, in our thoughts.
Yes.
And that's how we stand in our sovereignty, and that's how we stand in our power.
I love all those
But
words
it's a
you used.
journey.
Authority, sovereign. I struggle with this word. Sovereignty.
Sovereignty. I know, right?
Thank you. Sovereignty and power, because that warriors, that's where it's at. I mean, that is, if you want to live a life where you are not giving your power away all the time, and it is a practice, as we mentioned, we're peeling the layers of the onion, and we're always learning our lessons, right? So this work, you don't work with somebody or take that course and say, okay, I'm done. I'm enlightened, right? It's a lifelong practice. But the end goal, when you have that inner peace, when you're putting down those boundaries with love, when you are speaking lovingly your truth, whether other people are going to appreciate it or not, and you're being true to yourself, that is claiming your authority. And I just, that word has been something that I've been like really just dipping into lately, and sovereignty and authority, because we all have that ability, and we have the ability to, we're just so powerful. I'm just going to leave it there.
Right. And our parents used all the tools that they had. Right. And that was the same in my marriage. My ex and myself used all the tools that we had. And a dear friend of mine in the Netherlands interviews, I think it's 65 plus, and she has this whole platform where she shares their stories, and she's honoring age, which is so beautiful in this day.
So beautiful and so needed.
And she just interviewed my parents a couple of weeks ago, and she texted and she said, gosh, your mannerisms have the same mannerisms and the same intonations.
Wow.
And it was like, oh, it was really lovely. It made me warm inside. And it was like, gosh. And it's important for us to take ownership, because that's what makes me me. But it's also this wonderful gift that my mother has given me, just in her being her beautiful self. And but then there are moments where we're parenting or talking to people or what have you. For me, it's coming in parenting, obviously, where I'm like, oh, that's my mother. But that's one quality I don't want to hold on to. This is a quality that I choose to refine, just as she has chosen to refine qualities from her mother. And this is what is right action, is honoring the beautiful gifts that our family have given us, and the ones that we don't resonate, but we honor and see that's not my voice. And I want to find my voice in this. And again, that's this authority again. And some of it has merged with our identity, and some of it hasn't, but we also want to consciously choose which ones we want to keep in the upload, keep in the database, and which ones we want to upgrade and refine and move to a higher consciousness, move to a higher level frequency.
You described that whole process so beautifully, Saskia. I just feel like once this podcast comes out, I'm just gonna play that part on repeat, because what you described is you're basically letting go of, you're honoring the parts of your upbringing that really resonate and that you embody, that are part of your inner alignment, while letting go of what no longer served you, that you brought in from your family lines. And so much of this work really is about letting go of those parts of your ancestry that don't serve you. And it's okay to let go of those things. It's not in any contract to hold on to things that are how can I say this? It's not in our contracts to hold on to things that are heavy and bringing misery or any kind of negativity into our lives. That's not our birthright. That's not why we're here.
Right.
And I just feel so blessed to be living during this time, so that I can teach these concepts also. And know that, I'm not going to be burned at the stake for being a witch or something. You know what I mean?
I know, hallelujah. Which we may well have had in past times.
Yeah, but, I'm pretty sure I was.
Yeah. I know. And, when I was doing the teacher training all those years ago, that message rang true so clearly to me when my teacher said, every time we heal our ancestors and our forebearers.
It goes backwards
and
and forwards.
Hallelujah, bring it on. And it just gave me more impetus to heal.
Yeah.
More impetus I'm doing it for all the feminines in the back and all the feminines to come.
Yeah.
And, and that was, part of what also gave me the impetus and the courage to end the marriage, because, as wonderful as a man he was, we were not well suited for each other, and we weren't bringing out the best in each other.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's no way I want my daughters to see this as okay, because this is not, neither of us are thriving. Yeah. Neither of us are loving life. And I'm not prepared to settle for myself, and especially not for this next generation.
And I think I might actually do a separate episode just on this, on relationships, because of what the point you just made is this relationship, or it might be a relationship, but so many of us struggle with relationships, whether it's with our partner, our life partners, or family members, best friends, whatever. It's the question to always ask is this person or is this relationship serving me to my highest good, right? So in your case, you're setting an example for your daughters. Do you want your daughters to see, like, this is how a relationship is? And if the answer is no, like if you're not sharing the same values anymore, if you're not thriving, as you said, anymore, then there's no law or rule saying that you need to hold on to that relationship. And so many people hold on to relationships for way, way too long, in my observation, because out of whatever fear of judgment, or fear of losing their security. I mean, there are legitimate reasons, but knowing that the universe is always has our backs, really.
Right.
There's never any need to fear.
Right. And building that connection with our higher self. Because sometimes it's like, no, this is a rough patch. And your partner will tap into you. Sometimes it's for us to make the shift first, and then the partner recalibrates and aligns to our frequency and rises up.
Sometimes.
But sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes. So this is where that connection to our higher consciousness and our innate wisdom within, to begin to ask the questions. Should I stay or should I go? It's such a great song. But it's, what do we need now?
Yes.
Is this, can we come back, or do we need to break away? Yeah. And my ex-husband and I broke away, but we've reestablished a healthier foundation now apart. And in doing so, I have, that dialogue for my daughters. Even last night, my youngest was like in tears. I want you and dad to be together so we don't have to go back and forth to houses. And I was like, okay, I let her speak. And then I'm like, my love, your dad and I are never going to live in this, are not going to live in a house together again. This is life. This is how it is. This is life is a bit harsh for a little one, but this is how it is. And you are heard, and we honor what you have to say.
Mm-hmm.
And you may just be a little tired right now. That was huge when I was postpartum, and just observing the quality of my thoughts and my mind. And when I was doomsday, and when I was really like down, it was like, honey, you're sleep deprived. Go to bed.
Yes.
Get more rest. Because honestly, that simple foundation is like, things do look rosier once you've had a good night's sleep.
Yes.
If you know that depression isn't naturally part of your makeup.
Yeah.
And regardless, when you become clearer of your inner landscape and how you operate, you get to see when you're out of balance and when you're in balance. And that's what that core meditation practice is all about. Every class that I teach, we start with meditation, we start with sitting, because when we sit together, we can hold the space together, and we can start to build a foundation of what it feels like to meditate and to be still. And in that moment of cultivating that stillness, we come to see our true nature. We've heard this many a time.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, we can begin to see more clearly when we're in balance and when we're out of balance. I mean, that is huge in and of itself. And the beautiful thing, if I look around my landscape now, the more I've stood in my own integrity and stood in my own truth, I've attracted more of those self-seekers friends as well in my environment. And we only need one or two.
That's it.
Right?
True.
To talk to on the same level. I was speaking with someone the other day, and I was sharing my process, and she was like, don't be so hard on yourself. I'm like, I'm not being hard on my perception was, I need to see my truth in order to transform it. And her perception was, gosh, you're being really hard on yourself. Don't, be softer. And I'm like, but I'm not interpreting it as being tough. I'm witnessing my truth, that this is my tendency, and I want to transcend it. And in order to transcend it, I need to look at it with truth and honesty, but not with an emotional charge of right or wrong.
Right. And, which brings up the point that, knowing that we're so powerful, and going back to that central theme, is that right and wrong, like this concept of right or wrong that, so many of us grew up to believe, like there's certain, programming and, coming from society, parents, religion, that things are right or wrong. And what I'm loving about this work is that, okay, all right, besides the fact for things that are really like morally wrong, like there's certain things you shouldn't do.
Right.
Right? We can agree on. But as far as what's right or wrong, like the example you just gave about like, this process is working for me. Whereas in that woman's interpretation, that was being hard because maybe in her process, it's something different of self-discovery. And, warriors, just if you're going through something or you're growing up, whatever you're going through, knowing your own inner truth and owning that, there is so much power to that. So that when somebody comes by and tries to feed you, have you read the 4 Agreements? Black magic, right? They feed you black magic. They say, oh, that's wrong. Or no, you shouldn't do it that way. You should do it this way. You can, in your power, standing through your heels and grounding into the earth, say, thank you very much for your suggestion, but this is the way I this is what works for me, or how, whatever wording you want to use.
Right.
There's so much power in that, because how many times do people get caught up in, oh my God, like this person said this to me and it's, ruined my plan. I wanted to take this class to help heal myself. And, my best friend said, don't waste your money. And then the person doesn't do it, right? Black magic.
Yeah.
So I feel like I could talk to you. Maybe we should do a Saskia and Angela series, because I feel like I could talk to you for 10 hours. But maybe we could talk about that offline, about meeting again, whether on the podcast or off the podcast.
No, I think, because I think this is a great, we bring things out in each other that it's very valid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great synergy here, and just so many topics of modern life that I think come up for people, and they're like, people are struggling, people need help right now. And it's a conversation that I have pretty frequently in my community. Like, people need help. Like,
right. And it's this two-way conversation that brings up so much goodness that might not come up when we're solo.
Yeah.
It's the energy of this symbiotic energy that ignites more.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that so much. And, just so people know, this is part of the Local Business Owners series. So you're Boston based. Can you just let the audience know where you are, and do you teach yoga online too?
Yeah, Angela, I'm Connecticut. So I'm fairly local.
Oh, okay. You're New England. Okay, so you're in Connecticut, and so do you teach locally in your studio and online, correct?
Actually, well, no, at this time it's all online.
Okay.
Yeah, due to the COVID restrictions, we're still online, and I have my own platform, and I do teach in one other studio at this time. And other than that, it's all it's live on my own platform. For my monthly membership for my yoga, I send out 2 recorded classes a week, and then we do one live, and I'll be incorporating a weekly meditation practice too.
Lovely.
And in the platform, in the portal, you have nearly up to a year of classes available to you. So there's a whole database of past classes that you can take, and if there are classes that you enjoy, you can repeat and watch, because it is about us showing up for ourselves and building our own practice. So yes, community is fantastic, but again, it always comes back to us and our integrity to show up for ourselves, which is really challenging at times, but that's that grit. It has to start somewhere.
You have to start, even if it's small steps. And for so many of us, it's really about taking small action every day and being consistent.
Yeah.
Well, Saskia, thank you so much. So in the show notes, I'm going to leave all of your information so the warriors can find you. But if anybody's listening now and wants the information right away, how can people find you if they want to work with you?
My platform is on Linktree. So if you type in LINK and then the TR for tree, but then it's a dot and then /Saskia Bergmans Smith. So it's a Linktree. And then on there, you'll see my yoga classes and the free portal. I have free resources on there too, and various things, and the coaching.
Okay. Yes, and you also offer coaching as well, which is such a beautiful synergy with what you're already offering with yoga. So I'm going to post all of that information in the show notes of this episode. So if you want to find Saskia, talk to Saskia, work with her, that will be all right there. But Saskia, thank you so much. This was such a beautiful conversation and meeting. And
indeed. Thank you, Angela. It was wonderful.
Yeah, it was really lovely to talk to you. And I really think that the empowered warriors are in for a treat to be able to learn from you. So thank you
Well,
so much.
I hope it was helpful. Yeah.
Absolutely. And until next time, warriors, take good care. Thank you so much for listening to the Empowered Warrior podcast. It is an honor and a privilege to have you as a listener. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast and would like to help others pave their pathway to freedom, end their disempowerment and suffering, and become an empowered warrior, please share this podcast with your friends and family. Also, it is my intention to help humanity grow and evolve to their highest potential. So if you really enjoy what you're hearing, please help me spread the word by leaving a review in iTunes. Thank you again, and I am so grateful to be able to serve you in this very exciting way.